Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. I am very excited today to moderate this webinar. Thanks for attending. My name is Sandra Safo. I'm an associate professor of biostatistics in the Division of Biostatistics at the University of Minnesota. I am also a member of the 2024 class of the COPS Leadership Academy. So you may not be aware of the COPS Academy. So let me just briefly introduce that. COPS stand for the Committee of Presidents of Statistical Societies. It is made up of various statistical societies, including ASA, ENA, IMS, and WINA. It also has some friends for the societies. Um, COPS bestows many awards each year, including the COPS Leadership Academy, which was recently named as the Emerging Leader Award. And the purpose of this award is to recognize early career statistical scientists who show evidence of and potential for leadership. And it's also a mechanism for us to share our vision of leadership within the field. And so from COPS emerges this particular webinar. So these webinars are actually an opportunity for us to feature leaders throughout the discipline, hear about their stories, learn more about their insight, and hopefully practice what they say. And this is also an opportunity for us to celebrate statisticians and data scientists who are doing great things. So for today, I am very excited to be moderating the topic on leadership in statistical research, pivoting for impact and success. So in my own career, I've been reflecting on how to position myself or my research, especially in an ever evolving landscape, ensuring its success and relevance. And so I want to believe that most of you here have also been thinking about that. So I envision this particular webinar as an opportunity for us to hear from two leaders in statistics and data science on how they have successfully navigated these major shifts, learn about some failures, if there is any, embrace emerging research fails, and also adapt their focus to address new challenges, all the while maintaining long-term impact and success. So that being said, it is my great pleasure to introduce the two panelists, Dr. Nicole Lazar. Dr. Lazar is the department head and professor of statistics at Penn State University. She is the author of the book, The Statistical Analysis of Functional MRI Data, which was published by Springer. She's done pioneering work on the statistical analysis of cognitive neuroscience data with a focus on fMRI. And more recently, she's been doing analysis using topological data methods with applications in psychology, climatology, and different areas. She is past editor of the American Statistician. She's an elected fellow of the American Statistical Association and the Institute of Mathematical Statistics. She served as president of the Caucus for Women in Statistics in 2019. I'm excited to have Dr. Lazar here. We also have Dr. Chilong. Dr. Chilong is a professor of biostatistics at the Perlman School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania. He holds other appointments in the Department of Computer Science, Computer and Information Science at the School of Engineering and Applied Science, and also the Department of Statistics and Data Science at the Wharton School. He's also the Vice Chair of Faculty Professional Development in the Department of Biostatistics, Epidemiology, and Informatics. His research combines statistical, machine learning, and AI research with impactful biomedical applications. His research has been published in statistics journals, informatics journals, and AI or machine learning conferences such as NeurIPS. He is elected fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the American Statistical Association, and the American Medical Informatics Association. He's also the senior editor for cancer research and executive editor of Statistical Analysis and Data Mining, which is the ASA Data Science Journal. So just some housekeeping. Each panelist will have 10 minutes to talk about their leadership journey with a focus on that topic today. Then I've also prepared some questions for them, and I will also field questions from the audience. So without much ado, I would like Dr. Lazar to first introduce herself.
Right. Well, so thanks, Sandra, for the introduction and the preliminaries. I'm really happy and honored to be here today. So yeah, I'm Nicole Lazar. As Sandra said, I'm currently the head of the Department of Statistics at Penn State. I started that role in July, so almost a year that I've been department head now. And I guess I've sort of had, I think as probably lots of people have had, roundabout journeys that brought me to where I am. So I started my academic career as a faculty member at Carnegie Mellon University, and then moved to the University of Georgia, where I had a stint as interim department head just about 10 years ago for a couple of years. And 5 years ago, during the first pandemic summer, I moved to Penn State. So I've been here almost 5 years now. And as I said, started as department head a little under, almost a year ago. So I think, if I think about how I got here and also just my research journey, I know it's one of the things that Sandra had asked us to think about was, our both our leadership journeys and our research journeys, and how those may have also kind of wandered around a little bit. So, I came out of grad school with a very theoretical approach. I didn't expect that, because I came from a background that was a little bit more applied. I had done my undergraduate degree joint double major in statistics and psychology, and so I sort of thought of myself as a person who did applications, but my dissertation ended up being very theoretical in likelihood theory. And when I started my job at Carnegie Mellon, I was kind of interested in getting back into applications, but didn't really have a plan for how that was going to work. And then one day, one of my senior colleagues, Bill Eddy, knocked on my door and said, "You used to be a psychologist, right? I've got these brain images. Do you want to take a look at them with me?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, why not?" So that was more years ago than I want to really admit to in public. It was a long time ago. But that was, I think, for me, like a really first pivot in terms of my research direction, because again, coming out of my PhD, I had a very theoretical mathematical statistics kind of orientation. I mean, my whole dissertation was, Bartlett corrections and asymptotic expansions of test statistics, and, very sort of classical statistical likelihood theory types of things. And I had to take this leap, I feel like, and a pivot, and it's a risk, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to be successful or not. And my motivations at that time were, I remember thinking, it was like, well, maybe there are some interesting statistical questions here, but I kind of just want to get back looking at data again. And once I started getting into the data themselves, it's like, oh, there are so many interesting statistical questions. So this actually ended up being a really, I think, important pivot for me. I mean, it certainly has shaped my entire career. If I had said no to that question, I would be in a very different place right now. Maybe better, maybe worse, who knows, but different for sure. And so for me, I think this has just been, because it happened so early in my career. I was a first-year assistant professor when that happened. It's a risk, right? To completely shift direction. It's not necessarily going to work out. But for me, it brought home the importance for me as a person, I think, and as a statistician. And so if I had any advice, maybe this would be it, is to always just be open to these new possibilities that are going to come along, whether they're related to research or whether they're related to leadership opportunities. And so because of the direction that my research took, that also opened up leadership opportunities for me. So for instance, I was one of the people that was part of the push for the statistics in imaging section of ASA. We had an interest group. We had been like talking to each other on a big email chain, and then we're like, oh, maybe we should do something. And so that became a section of ASA, and eventually I became chair of that section, right? So that was a leadership opportunity for me. And Sandra mentioned that I'd been president of the caucus for women in statistics, which came about as a completely random thing. I was at JSM one year, and someone who was involved in caucus asked me, "Hey, would you be interested in running for president?" What she failed to mention in asking me if I would be interested in running for president was that you ran for president uncontested. So if you agreed to run for president, you were basically agreeing to become the president, to become the next president. So one of the things that I changed as president was that you had to have at least 2 nominees for every position, so that you wouldn't be running uncontested for something like president. So also, if you have these opportunities, maybe check and see what the conditions are that you're agreeing to. So that was an interesting experience that I learned a lot from, working with statisticians really all around the world. It was pretty fantastic. I enjoyed that a lot. And then, here at Penn State, well, now I'm department head, and it was, yeah, I mean, I'd done it before, as I said, on an interim basis. And then, we were here anticipating that our department head done his 2 terms, was going to step down, someone else was going to come in. We did a national search. We had external candidates, but my colleagues kind of, they asked me to apply, and I went back and forth on whether I wanted to or not. But ultimately it came down to, I love this department. I really believe in the work that we do here. And I was honored that my colleagues thought that I could continue that mantle. And so I agreed to put my name in, and here I am. So again, I guess, it comes down to being open to those possibilities, and maybe thinking about yourself and your options in ways that you might not have anticipated, because that's going to open up a lot of doors for you. So that's just my intro blurb. I'll stop here, and Sandra, let you ask questions later on that we can respond to more
Sure,
directly. Pass it to
sure.
Chi.
Yeah, that's an interesting journey. I will definitely have a lot of questions related to that. So now I will leave it for Dr. Long.
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you also, Nicole, for sharing your really, really exciting and inspiring journey. And I'm actually going to share my screen. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. Are you able to see my screen? Excellent.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I need to go back. Sorry about that. All right. So I also want to share my own experience, particularly in recent years, and in advancing statistical science and AI, we call it intelligent precision medicine. I started my academic journey as a PhD student and in the Department of Biostatistics at the University of Michigan. And I was very fortunate to be mentored by 2 of the giants in our field, Professor Xihong Lin and Professor Robert Little. And so one of them is Bayesian, one of them is a frequentist. You can guess who is which is which. And so with that type of training, what I have learned is for each real world problem, it's really important to think about what is the most appropriate approach rather than being tied to a specific type of a school of thoughts. And what I have also learned from both of my advisors, as well as many professors in the department, it's the importance of developing methodologies that can be used to address real world problems. This is how the impact of our work can be translated to have a much bigger impact. And for my dissertation, I focus on really causal inference, a little bit missing data. And so subsequently, I joined Emory University as assistant professor in Department of Biostatistics. At the time, it was actually the Department of Biostatistics a few years ago was renamed. That also reflects how the field has evolved. In that period of time, I branched into a number of new research areas, and some are more successful than the other. And so, for instance, this is about the time that the multi-omics data have really emerged in biomedicine. And some of my collaborators have really collected such data, and they often encountered the situation that they didn't know exactly how to analyze such data so that they can actually obtain more robust and generalizable results. And also at the time, it was the beginning of like digitizing the EHRs. And so one of the issues that was often encountered is really the incomplete data. And so then during that period of time, I collaborated extensively with domain experts in public health as well as in medicine. And later, I also started collaborating with quantitative scientists in biomedical informatics and applied math. One of the reasons is as we started working with multi-omics data and EHR data, we often encountered the issue as the data preprocessing, curation, and cleaning. And this is actually not in our wheelhouse. Then by collaborating with and the domain experts and by collaborating with quantitative data scientists in other fields that have really enabled us and to basically get access to the data set that we can actually, for which we can actually develop and statistical methodology. In 2016, this is really a by chance. And so I got to know an opportunity at the University of Pennsylvania Perelman School of Medicine. So then I decided to essentially take a chance and to really switch my career a little bit in the sense that moving to medical school from a school of public health. I was trained in the School of Public Health. I worked in School of Public Health as a faculty member for 11 years. Moving to medical school is really a significant change. What I have learned is, by the way, in the we are in the School of Medicine, we are in the Department of Biostatistics, Epidemiology, and Informatics. We have 3 divisions. So which actually creates a very vibrant environment for supporting transdisciplinary collaboration within the medical school and across the campus. And so this is one thing I have found. Our Penn campus collaboration is very much valued. And for instance, our PhD programs are set up in such a way that actually they don't belong to individual departments. And they are already cross-cutting. And so we have faculty members and across multiple departments. So this is also the period of time that really the EHR data and the real world data have really emerged as a major opportunity or source to drive biomedical research and clinical research. They presented significant challenges and including missing data and biases. And more importantly, in EHR data, they have both structured data, such as the data that as statisticians, we are very used to analyze, as well as unstructured data, such as the doctor's notes, pathology reports, and radiology reports. And those are the kind of data that we typically, as a statistician, I wasn't really used to analyze. However, such unstructured data contains substantial amount of information. And so the traditional approach to extract the data from unstructured data to a structured format is through the chart review, which we all know is now scalable and also error-prone. So this is also the time, really exciting time, and the modern AI, such as deep learning, reinforcement learning, generative AI, and have really emerged. And for some of those techniques, they have re-entered into mainstream research, have found successes, and profound impact in many, many aspects of or this field of our society, including but not limited to biomedicine. So most recently, the large language models have been considered really breakthrough, right? So that offers really exciting applications in really all the domains of society, right? So as a result, our group really motivated by the high impact real world problems in biomedicine, we have branched into a number of research areas that we had never worked with, and including machine learning models for both structured and unstructured data, and also looking into algorithmic fairness, and also how to leverage powerful generative AI models and to support clinical decision support, and so also develop statistical methods and theory. So along the way, we have also started collaborating with computer scientists. Also, to further enhance the impact of our work, I have also pivoted to taking on some leadership and in our medical school, particularly related to data science and AI. I have actually founded and led the Center for Cancer Data Science since 2020. It has served as a hub to really engage data science and AI researchers and across the Penn campus and catalyze innovations in biomedical and clinical data science and AI. So across Penn campus, we have developed highly productive collaborations with the School of Engineering and Wharton, and most recently, working with our colleagues in computer science, we actually received a research funding from ARPA-H to advance trustworthy AI for clinical decision support in a number of diseases. And research funding from federal and state government such as this is really essential to support our research. At the same time, we have also developed valuable industry partnership. One of our current top priorities is really to deepen and grow our industry partnership, which can really help us expand our bandwidth and enhance our key infrastructures such as GPU. I think that I'm running out of time. With that, I'm actually just going to pause. I may actually use some of my future slides to answer some of those questions. And I'll turn it back to you, Sandra.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this great work you're doing, all of you. So I just want to ask, you did mention, Dr. Lazar, when you were talking, you did mention about um, pivoting to imaging or learning about fMRI data when you started. And then Dr. Long, you also talked about when you started your PhD and you pivoted to certain areas and some were successful whilst others were not, and more recently, AI and machine learning. So do you think there are levels of pivoting? So if I'm interested in, let's say, pivot, do you think there are levels of that? If there are, what do you think are the strategies for being successful? And how would you even define a successful pivot?
That's a very interesting question, Sandra. Yeah, so I think there are different types and different levels of pivot. So for me, the pivot to fMRI and imaging analysis was a big one. There was a very steep learning curve, had to learn a whole new type of data and data analysis types of problems. That by itself took a couple of years. So again, risky as an assistant professor to do. There are also, though, I think, sort of smaller pivots. So for instance, I've started in the last 7 or 8 years or so working with topological data analysis, which is a sort of in the interface of math, computer science, statistics, and applications. And that to me seems like a smaller pivot because it's within our zone as data scientists and statisticians, right? We need to learn some new mathematical techniques perhaps, but a lot of familiar tools. And so that kind of pivot, I mean, also carries risks because, we were, I think, some of the first people to start looking at this from a statistical perspective, certainly for neuroimaging. And we had a lot of false starts, right? And so our initial attempts to use these methods didn't actually work. I'm just now open up on my computer a paper that was published a couple of years ago that claims to be able to do what we initially tried to do, 7 or 8 years ago unsuccessfully. So I'm curious to see how they've managed it, and what they're getting out of it. So those are smaller pivots though, right? And so I think a smaller pivot carries with it still some risk, but maybe not as much as like a sweeping, I'm going to change my direction, right? I'm going to flip from frequentist to Bayesian or vice versa. I'm going to start learning about some new type of application that's got very deep science behind it as well that I didn't know about before, like having to learn all of that. So there are levels, absolutely.
Right. Dr. Long.
Yes. So early in my career, I think I would say that I took a little bit more baby steps, and as I was we were our lab was thinking about branching to different areas, and so in addition to our original research, and so it is, you could say that it's that's a sort of like smaller than a lower level of pivoting is we at that time we building on our existing methodological research experience expertise. We were thinking about whether or not we could actually leverage those expertise and to work in a new domain. So that's certainly a lower level of pivoting. And more recently was really, yes, fairly significant for us when we branch into some of those AI machine learning fields. Then we had to learn the new techniques and models that we had never learned before. So then one of the reasons we were able to do that is at this stage of my career, so I didn't have to think about like a promotion and or other things, so that I felt like I had a little bit more freedom, and so to think about what do I really want to prioritize. So then this is why, yeah, evidently there are different levels of pivoting and also associated strategies. I think really depends on what we prioritize at any given time.
Thank you. So now I think Dr. Nicole, Lazar, when you were talking, you talked about it can be risky. So how do you determine when it's time to pivot your research focus? And do you think there are some key signals or signs that would suggest that perhaps a shift is necessary for you?
So I'm probably like one of the worst people to ask this question to, because I think so. One of the things I love about being a statistician is that we get to always be reinventing ourselves, right? We work on new types of problems, or technologies are always changing, so that opens up other avenues for us. And I sometimes will joke that I have a short intellectual attention span, so that I'm always looking for new things to work on. So I probably have pivoted the smaller types of pivots, not the gigantic pivots. I've done the smaller types of pivots probably quite a fair number of times over the course of my career, just because I've been kind of just curious to explore something new. And for me, that's when I know that it's time to kind of shift, right? So if my attention is being grabbed by either some new technology, whether it's, I don't know, Bootstrap or machine learning or whatever, and I'm finding myself like wanting to learn more about it and read more about it and try it out in my own work, then I know it's time for me to kind of take a shift into that direction. But there's only so many hours in the day, only so many days in the week. And so like topological data analysis is a great example. It's something I had not heard of. I was at a workshop in SAMSI. One of the mathematicians there mentioned it to me, and he's like, I really think this can help. And it wasn't clear at the beginning, and sometimes, I mean, it's still not right exactly clear how it can help for the types of work that we're doing. So again, it's just like taking that curiosity that we always naturally have with us, I hope, and projecting that forward and always keeping to project that forward. And when you stop being sort of curious about a topic or getting the enjoyment from it, that for me is a sign that, okay, maybe it's time to shift again.
Great points. Dr. Long.
Well, I I don't think I could have said better than what Nicole has already said. I really think that curiosity is the one thing that really drives us all into research in the first place. And I think many of us are naturally curious, and this is why we decide to pursue a career in research. And so also another thing that really drives my pivot, if you will, and over the years is the type of impact I want to really bring about. And so I would say early in my career, when I was trained in biostatistics, I know that we are all familiar with this typical like metrics of success, right? The publications, grants, so on and so forth. And over the years that I have also learned, and so then the impact of our work, it's really important for the impact of our work to go beyond just a publication that will rise or appear in the journal. And so that actually has been, I would say, deeply rooted in the culture of biostatistics. And so that we have, there are really different type of impact. And so a lot of biostatisticians actually contribute to large scale studies, and that they provide us really key and crucial statistics and data science leadership. And so at the same time, we also have to live in the real world. And so, which is why, as I alluded to early in my career, I chose to like more small pivots, and that would allow me to continue to remain productive in the line of research that we have had a track record, where we have had a track record, and then to leverage those expertise and branch into new areas. And so as I become more senior, though, I become even more excited about the potential impact that we can have, particularly since now I'm in the medical school. I always think about how our methods and models and can be deployed and in real world studies and in healthcare delivery, so that we can actually further elevate and enhance our impact.
Awesome. So let me ask a question for, let's say, for early careers, perhaps thinking about this. You did mention something related to that, but then how do you balance the pressure to establish a particular niche area with a need to be open to new opportunities as you're thinking about pivoting? Because there are the pressure to publish, and then, like you said, we have the standard ways for measuring, or the metrics for measuring. So how do we, if we want to pivot, how do you balance this pressure to develop a particular niche area, so that if they mention your name as an early career researcher, this is what you're known for? And then also thinking about pivoting to areas that might be emerging. Any of you can go first.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start unless you want to, Chi.
No, go for it.
Okay, so I think this is where, so what she was saying a couple minutes ago about the small pivots, I think that's the crucial thing here. When you're early career, you're right, there's a lot of things that you're trying to balance, right? There's establishing yourself, there's finding your niche areas, there's establishing your independence, but then there's also the satisfying of the curiosity, and getting all of those things sort of aligned can be difficult. Hopefully, you know, if you're an academic, you're in a department that is supportive of that type of exploration. Not every department is, and so it's really important, I think, to understand the culture of the department that you're working in. But those little pivots that she was talking about earlier can really help here, because those are just, you're still in your niche area, but you're taking a side branch. And those side branches, those smaller pivots, also help to establish your independence, because you're taking a path that's different from your advisors. You're starting to publish with people not your advisor. You're starting to find your own collaborators. And so that establishes your independence and your niche at the same time, I think.
Thank you. Anything to add?
No, I would also just add that through those little pivots, I think that we also essentially develop our skills on how to pivot, right? So that's actually not something that we learned as a student. And as a student, we were just trying to build foundation, solid foundation, and learn how to be a successful researcher and in the areas that we chose, right? So, at least this is my personal experience, and this pivoting, some was more successful, some were less successful. Both are highly valuable in my opinion, and so I through those trials and errors, and then I learned, and then later on, sometimes you need to be in the right place, the right time, and having the right resources and the connections, and to pursue a new research direction, right? And to particularly, if we want to be productive, then we want to have an impact.
Thank you. So this is a great segue to the next question, which is the next question. So now I want to ask, how do you, let's say, rebrand yourself as you pivot? So maybe you are known for this particular area and you started taking baby steps or maybe larger steps in pivoting. So then how do you rebrand yourself, and is that even important?
So let me take a first crack at this. So I actually don't think we necessarily need to rebrand, and which is why I want to use the word branching out. I still think that it's important to continue to maintain our identity, and so then we can actually bring the statistical thinking into, particular for me, and into a new research area that could be at the interface and of, say, machine learning and medicine. So now, even though at the same time, I really think it's important for us to, it's not to rebrand, but to learn the language of what other people say. So in other words, is so that we can understand each other. And as we branch into a new research area. And so at the same time, it's important to demonstrate that we understand. And for instance, what I have learned through collaboration with computer scientists is it's really important for me to understand what they are doing, and so particularly the value of what they are doing, and then understand how we can contribute. And also, not only I need to think about that what we can contribute as a statistician is valuable to us, also what contributions we can actually bring, and that are considered valuable to them. So sometimes I think we tend to think this is important, and but turns out when I talk to my collaborators, and it's not necessarily the most important thing to them. And on the other hand, there are many areas I feel like that they actually, after I talk to them, they recognize that what we can bring into the table is actually very valuable to what they do. So then that actually creates opportunity for us to really work together and then to pivot together, if you will.
Thank you. Anything to add, Dr. Lazar?
No, I guess I would just say that, I've never thought consciously about, oh, now I must be rebranding myself. So I agree with Chi that that's not something that I don't think you need to worry about or think about. Just do the things that you want to do the things that you find interesting and fun. And the communication, that is, I again agree completely with Chi. So important just to understand the language that your collaborators are speaking. We use the same words to mean different things. We use different words to mean the same things. Establishing those lines, and that can take time as well. But it's really, really important if you're going to have a successful pivot. You need to understand the language of the area that you're pivoting to.
Thank you. So Dr. Long, you did mention that some pivots were not successful. So can you share one or two experiences of failed pivot? And then how do you cultivate, let's say, resilience when a particular pivot is not successful? What were some of the things you learned that you're going to use next time, or you have used for a successful pivot?
Right. So there are just so many. And so I guess it's more, one more recent example is when I moved to Penn, Penn is very well known in like immune therapy for cancer, right? So this is something particular. We have world-renowned leaders in this space. And just by accident, I got to know some investigators who are really interested in this idea of using new antigens and to design personalized vaccines for cancers. On surface, this is really intriguing idea, and because cancer is heterogeneous, and even within a person that you look at as tumor cells, they are heterogeneous from the same tumor, and so that having a vaccine that's specifically designed based on the new antigens identified in the tumor cells as very intriguing and potentially paradigm shift, right? So our group actually spent considerable amount of time looking into that, thinking about how we can contribute. Particularly the first step I forgot to mention is really to develop a data science and statistical machine learning tools that to predict the neoantigens for which one could actually design vaccines, and that would actually elicit responses from human body. So the way it works is you use that and identify some signatures from tumor cells that would actually elicit immune response. Then you actually design an antibody and so immune therapy based on that. So we spent a lot of time, and long story short is in the end, we just felt like the data that are available and the technology, the measures that are currently available, they're just not ready for us to really develop method that would actually be useful. We can write methods papers, I have no doubt. We can write methods papers, but that again, and that was after I already became a full professor. So then we actually spent more than 1 year, and we did literature search. And we actually started thinking about some methods, and we did some preliminary experiments. So then I actually didn't, in the end, we decided not to pursue it. So you could say it's an unsuccessful pivot. But through this experience, as I alluded to earlier, is I learned that you really need to be at the right time, having the right resources, the data, and to make a successful pivot, particularly if the goal goes beyond just publications.
Thank you, Dr. Lazar. Any experience?
Oh, I guess I'll just give an example from the leadership side rather than the research side, if that's okay. So one of the things that, and I wouldn't call it necessarily failure, but maybe more of a stumble, right? So I think oftentimes when, at least my experience, when I come into a new role, like I've just recently started, you sort of have certain maybe not articulated assumptions about how things work or how they're going to be. And what I discovered early on, and in my first couple of months as department head here, it's a different university. Every place is different. Asking questions is so important. And I found that when I wasn't asking questions, but was just assuming that I understood how something maybe in the bureaucracy here worked. I think I just assumed it was the same as it was at UGA, or that I understood how a particular mechanism worked, and I was wrong, then that creates a sense of stumble and crisis and, oh goodness, this pivot was a very bad idea. But what I've so what I mean, it's like an obvious thing, just like in our research, we should ask questions. I think in other types of roles that we take on, we should also ask questions and not be afraid. So I've started in the last 6 months just asking a lot more questions about everything. It's like, do I have this assumption right? Is this how this budget thing works? Is this how this bureaucratic thing works? And just waiting for the answers. And I don't care, just like when I ask questions in research, I don't care if they're quote unquote stupid questions, because I want to get the answer and I want to do a better job in the research. I've learned that for leadership positions as well, that's also important. It's just to ask the questions, get the information that you need to be successful, because otherwise, again, that pivot could also turn into a failure, which you don't want to have happen.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to ask a question to Dr. Long. So you did mention that you're partnering with industry. So how did you make that move? Any experiences that you want to share with us?
Well, that's a great question. And briefly, the motivation to do that is what we have found that oftentimes potential industry partners, they have resources that we don't. And sometimes it's the data. And they actually have a vast amount of data, and they have a team of data scientists and engineers to actually curate the data to have this nationwide research grade, right, data set that actually we can use for really to do very exciting. Sometimes they have other advantages. So to accomplish that is one of the things that, particularly in recent years, I recognize that it's I needed to step outside of my comfort zone. I'm very comfortable with doing research in my own lab. Then I actually mentioned this leadership role in our medical school, in our cancer center. Is now I recognize that sometimes we need to do a better job of promoting ourselves, our work, and it's not rebranding. What we can say that is we can do a lot of really provide a lot of important, valuable statistical expertise. And then some of those can actually be called informatics. Some of those can actually be called machine learning and AI. Then we demonstrate the value of such effort and using real cases in research and in biomedical research and in healthcare delivery. Once we are able to demonstrate that, and then we have more credibility, right? So then now it's not credibility within the field of statistics, it's credibility within the medicine, the credibility within the School of Health. Then that actually raises our visibility. So that's actually what I have noticed is once we raise our visibility, a lot of actual connections we've built is actually not built through myself. I didn't have those connections. It's actually through our institution and through our school. And well, the first thing is once we become more visible, or when the school leadership and the university leadership recognize the value we bring in, and in this larger, for instance, biomedical research enterprise, then we will have a seat at the table when they start talking about with industry partners. And then once we have a seat at the table, then we will have the opportunity to actually share with potential partners what we bring to the table. And in addition to, we have one of the leading research programs in medicine here at Penn. So then we want people from outside to be aware of that. We also have one of the leading and research programs in statistical, in machine learning, and in AI research. So it's more of a raise awareness and increase our visibility and have a seat at the table. Then I think that everything after that really just comes very naturally.
Thank you. Thank you. So I will ask attendees, do anyone have any question to ask? You can use the Q&A. Maybe you can raise your hand if you are not muted. Anybody has any question?
So I think there was a question that Nicole answered in the chat, but I don't know whether or not Nicole, you want to answer it.
That's true.
Oh.
So let me.
Go ahead, Sandra.
I was going to say, I'm going to read a question. So this is a question from Ryan, and it says, Dr. Lazar, you mentioned a few times that you were asked to step into a role, and I'm interested to know more about what experience or characteristics led to those nominations or requests.
Yeah, right. So I wasn't sure whether I'd get the chance to answer that live. So I did type something into the Q&A. And I think there's a combination of things. So some of it is definitely circumstance. And this comes for research as well, leadership also, right? Being in the right time at the right place with the right skills. and maybe the word sucker written on your forehead. Depends on how you think about these things. What I found is that, I started volunteering. For instance, I started volunteering with ASA pretty early on in my career, and that's just led to a lot of other opportunities. If you get involved in the community and people get to know you, they know that you're reliable. Hopefully they know that you're reliable, then other opportunities come your way. So I think, again, that's the sort of the circumstance, and meeting people, volunteering, being generous with your time, which again is a risk, right? Because we're definitely, the research side is super important, especially for early career people. But I always tell my junior colleagues that one of the ways that you can extend your reach is through our professional societies as well. Those are a whole other pool of people maybe outside your research realm, that will come to know you and can give you these kinds of opportunities that I've been lucky enough to have put in front of me. And then, here in the department, again, I'd just been here for a few years when we were coming up on this search, and I don't know, felt like, got along well with my colleagues. I guess they felt like they got along well with me. I don't know. You'd have to ask them why they asked me to put my name in as department head. So yeah, I guess that's maybe a longer answer than I needed to give to the question.
Thank you. Any other questions? So this is from Ben. Ben, do you mind reading your question? Okay, so for early career MS in our current climate, where would you recommend someone to focus their effort? This is to both of you.
Well, that's well, I guess it's a question we are all wondering, right? So it's by the way, the early MS, what does it mean? Anyone can elaborate?
Master's student, I'm guessing.
It's a student.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. But then
Okay.
Or just graduated.
Okay, just graduated. So yeah, so that's a great question. So I would say we are also wrestling here when how do we advise our students, right? So given this, it's a very stressful amidst all those uncertainty. So I think the question also has more to do with what is this each person and what is your career aspirations? Right, so you think about your career aspirations, what's the impact of the current environment? And I would argue that that question really varies from one to another. So one thing I can share that is what has really sustained myself and our colleagues is we remain really committed and steadfast commitment to advancing the mission of our institution, which is research, education, and generation of knowledge. Right. So this is thing that particularly in times like this, we actually have even deeper appreciation about what we do, how important it is. And the other thing is, again, related to what I said, is I really think that we need to do a better job with promoting our work, making the public aware of what we do, and so that that's really important to our field. Then for the specific individual, then in that case is again depends on your aspiration. And typically we're driven by our aspiration, and then think about so what are the opportunities available. So I guess it's without knowing all that information, probably this is maybe I should just stop here. Then I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Chi. We hear as well. I mean, I'm in a statistics department, not a biostatistics department. So the constraints and the concerns are maybe somewhat different, but the focus on the research mission and the educational mission is the same. finding the things again that you're interested in and that where you can make an impact and provide your voice. Again, so true what she said. We're not very good at promoting ourselves and bringing that voice to the table. But I think if people understand the role that we play, that will bring benefits to us as a community. So, and every one of us has a piece of that voice, I think. And so, yeah, it's a tough climate right now, but there have been tough climates in the past, and we just need to find the things that motivate us. And it's I know that's kind of vague advice, but that's really without knowing more is sort of all that I can say as well.
All right, thank you. There is one question from Ryan again, and we have 3 minutes, so maybe each of you will briefly answer this question. So Ryan says, experience is always a straight line in hindsight. You can look back at certain experiences and say, okay, this happened, then that, and that. But then if when you want to deal with it in real time, can you share your thought on how you navigated your pivot experiences when you didn't know, or at least felt you didn't know where you were going on how you were actually going to get there? So briefly, I'll start with Dr. Lazar.
Yeah. This is true, right? Hindsight, wasn't they say hindsight's 2020, right? Yeah, and there definitely were many times in my career when I'm like, well, how did this, where am I going next? How did this happen? How am I here? I really don't have like strong advice or something to say here other than, well, we're statisticians, we should embrace the uncertainty. And maybe we became statisticians because we don't like the uncertainty, but yeah, I'm gonna see if Chi has a better answer than I do for this one.
Right. So this is what I said exactly, and so look, hindsight 2020, and so at the time when we were making a pivot, and we wouldn't know what was going to happen. However, every time you attempted a pivot, we attempted a pivot, then it could be more successful, could be less successful. Then we learn from the experience. So that experience can really help us moving forward to make a better informed decision regarding whether or not to make a pivot, either in research or in taking on a new role or leadership role, right? So, and so my advice is you're just gonna have to try it. Dip your toe into it, and then this is everybody is different. Everyone's experience is different. We all have a different skill sets. You just have to try it through. This is what I said: trials and errors. One thing that has really sustained me, and in addition to curiosity, that is really, really important, Nicole said, that is, we all have some sort of guiding principles. What do you want to accomplish in your career? To me, it's really, I want to have a real impact on biomedicine. So then I use that as way for me and for our lab to identify the areas that we really want to put our energy and resources into. But that actually is developed over time. Yes.
Sure. Thank you. One last question, then I'll just wrap up. Any book recommendation? Dr. Lazar, I've been curious about topological data analysis, but I sort of don't really know where to start. So do you have any book recommendation on that? And Dr. Longtu, any recommendation on anything we've talked about so far, book recommendation?
So for topological data analysis, I have mostly learned from papers. There are some books out there which I haven't read yet, so I can't recommend any of them. But there are a lot of good papers out there, review articles, and if anyone is interested, I can certainly recommend them. Sandra, I can email you if you want some suggestions.
Thank you.
I was thinking you were going to talk about other type of books, not just
books.
research. No, unfortunately nowadays, actually, I don't have much time to read books these days. I do actually watch a lot of short videos when I have time. The TED Talks, I find many of those are very inspirational. Give you one example. So my esteemed colleague from Wharton, Adam Grant, who has really rethought how people lead and work and live. And so his pioneer research has really inspired people to question assumptions about motivation, generosity, and creativity. Also, in the end, I really want to cite, I also watch a lot of commencement address. I found the commencement address by Steve Jobs to be particularly inspirational. So I would actually like to end this by cite late Steve Jobs and Apple founder, co-founder, assuming everybody knows him. And so I think toward the end of his 2005 Stanford commencement address, he said, "Stay hungry and stay foolish." And so this is one of the things, in my opinion, that has really motivated me and to continue pursuing high impact research.
Thank you so much. This has been great. Thank you, Dr. Lazar. Thank you, Chi, for being here. And I want to thank all the attendees. Thanks so much for attending. I also want to say thank you to those behind the scene, Megan Glenn, Lauren Crawford, Amita Manatunga, and Jessica Lee. And for attendees, I want you to stay tuned for more events like this if you really liked it. And I just want to say thanks again. All of you have a great day. Bye-bye.